Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. Holidays are just upon us. It is engagement season, not just holiday season, but engagement season. Lots of couples getting engaged around the holidays, a very special time. We're going to give you things that you should consider when getting engaged, before getting engaged, and also maybe, the wedding. Where's it going to be? How about a beautiful tropical fantasy destination like Hawaii? She's going to give us those tips and also some insight on simple Kona beach weddings. And that's what she does. She facilitates everything. If you're thinking about getting married in Hawaii, she is our professional of the year. Becky Ringler is back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I know people will be listening to this often later, but today is the day before Thanksgiving. And yeah, things are good today. It's a lots of preparation going on, but it's a beautiful day. I'm happy to be here. So
Mm, it's always a beautiful day in Hawaii, and that's why so many choose to get married there. But as we've identified previously, sometimes people think, well, I can just do it myself. I'll get there. I get an officiant. I'll get the license. I'll find, I'll just roll up on a beach. What's the big? No, there's much more to it than that. There's things that you would not even realize unless you spoke with a professional. And as I've spoken with some of the people that you've worked with, they found you online and they chose you because others don't get back to them or don't communicate. And there's like a disconnect. But this is one of the most important times of your life. So I
yeah.
don't understand that. But obviously you get it. This is what you do, and you've performed or was part of in many different ways, hundreds and hundreds of weddings in Hawaii. So engagements, what do you got for us in terms of things to keep in mind or tips or such?
Yeah, and actually, let's start with the fact that, so just in general, and by the way, there's there's this whole thing in the wedding industry about engagement season, but honestly, I mean, all of my couples get engaged at all times of year. I think it's just really common around the holidays because people are going to be around their families and they can announce to everybody and it becomes like this big deal. But honestly, like if you're going to get engaged, do it when it feels right. So that would be my other tip. It doesn't have to be when everyone expects it to be. Um, but once you get engaged, there are a lot of things to think about. And um, I would just like to chat a little bit today about those things and then maybe how people end up getting married, deciding to get married in Hawaii. But I mean, the main thing is that, you know, it depends on how old you are, right? Is this your first marriage? And even if it's your first marriage, it depends on your age, right? Because if you're 20 something versus 40 something, I've married a lot of people that have never been married before in their 40s. The outlook is a little different than when you're 20 something, in terms of what's expected, what's desired. And the one thing I would invite everybody to do is to talk to your future spouse and decide on the things that feel most important to the two of you. There are a lot of times a lot of family expectations. Again, it depends on I think if you're younger, there are more family expectations than if you're older. I think people kind of like let it go. Once you get to a certain age, people are a little more lax about it and they don't have as many, or if it's your second marriage or whatnot. But remember that just because you think that it's done a certain way and that you have to do it that way, if that doesn't suit you, you don't have to do it that way. Again, barring certain family obligations or, everyone has different family dynamics where you may not be able to do it the way that you want to do it. But uh, if you have free reign to do your wedding how you want to, talk about whether you want to do it locally where you live, or if you want to do a destination wedding, or if you want to do an adventure wedding. Like there are people that go, like if you're a big skydiving enthusiast, you could like
Hmm.
have a skydiving wedding. Like there's a lot of cool things that you can do. My husband and I actually, when we got engaged, now we were a little older. I was 34 when we got engaged, when we got married. And actually, I think I turned 34. Anyway, regardless, doesn't matter. So I was a little older. But we talked about, we had seven other weddings to go to right before ours. And we didn't want our wedding to be the same as everybody else's wedding. And we started to talk about what would be fun. Like, what do we love to do? Because I was totally getting
Hmm.
stressed out about it. I was like, oh my gosh, it just doesn't feel good. And if you ever feel, I mean, weddings can be a stressful thing, but choose something that brings you joy because it can feel stressful and it doesn't have to be. That is my invitation. So we talked about all the things like what do we like to do? And I actually that's when the skydiving thing came up. I was like, I wish we were skydivers. Then we could just be like, hey, we'll do the skydiving thing, which we're not. I have been skydiving. Oh, no, I haven't. Matt has. I've been hang gliding, not skydiving. Excuse me. But anyway, I think I think that the most important thing to, well, what we decided is we love the ocean, we love the beach, we loved Hawaii. We were not living here at the time. And we said, let's just get married in Hawaii. And I felt like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulder when we made that decision. And then it became a lot more fun. And so I invite you, if you are thinking about your wedding, first and foremost, think about maybe you've always dreamed about having it a certain place or a certain way. Consider your budget because you might dream about getting married in a chateau in France, with 300 of your closest friends, but is that in the cards? Think about the realisticness of what you're dreaming, and then when you begin to start the planning process, it really does help. Unless you have unless you're doing it locally, everybody, it's so much easier. It really does help to have a planner who can help you with all the
Mm.
details because there are so many things to think about that you probably don't know. So yeah, and that's the point of someone who can help you plan is that they do know all the things, and you definitely want to have somebody who listens to you also, right? Who's really executing your vision, who guides you without being pushy or trying to get you to do things you don't want to do. So um, yeah,
I
those
always
are that's
ask
the
every time we talk about this,
yeah.
why would anyone want to be stressed out in worrying
Because it's
about all the
yeah.
pieces that have to come together for a wedding? And side note here, in another life, I got married on an island, and I I knew somebody that lived there. They opened their home. They said you can use it if you want. So I said to a bunch of friends and family, hey, this is the plan. Pay for a plane ticket. It was like $400 back then. Just come on down. Got everything for you. Guest house, food, everything. Take care of it. It's you'll be on vacation. Would you believe that people had challenges? Well, I don't know if I can come that time. Is that the date? Really? This is going on. That's going on. I said, you know what? Just go without them. And I had a reception when
Yeah.
I came back. And that's to your point, whatever supports
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And when we got married in Hawaii, we got married at the end of October. At the time, we had a lot of friends who had small children and
Hmm.
or kids in school. And I was like, there's no way that they can come. My best friends, from my life could not come. And I
That's
wasn't
what I'm
mad
saying.
about it.
Right.
We planned, and actually we planned on having so we were living in the Bay Area of California at the time, and we planned a month after our wedding, we planned like a dessert reception in San Francisco. And then a month after that, in December, we were going back to see my parents at Christmas back east, and we planned my mom hosted a party, like a reception. My parents hosted a reception for us at their house. And so we sent all three invitations in one envelope, like the Hawaii. We invited everybody because I'm like, I
Hmm.
don't think people are going to come. It was a risk, right? Because we invited like maybe 75 to 100 people, maybe. And I was like, I really hope they don't all come to Hawaii because that's not really in the cards. But it wasn't. We had about 25 people at the wedding, which was perfect. And then we had a lot of people at the San Francisco reception. And then we had a lot of people. There was a huge snowstorm actually the night of our reception in upstate New York. So some people couldn't make it that were planning on it, but we actually had a pretty full house. And it was really it was so nice
Hmm.
because I actually got to invite people from all parts of our lives that maybe I wouldn't have been able to invite otherwise because we had three different ways for them to celebrate. But we got our Hawaii wedding, which it was actually, I have to tell you, because there was no one to help me. I tried to find someone to help me do my wedding here, and I could not find anybody. There was like a couple people at the time, and they were booked. And so I did it myself, and I do not recommend that. it was very stressful. I
Mhm.
did do it through, I think I mentioned last time, through a hotel, but they did not offer a lot of guidance. So I did, I pieced together a lot of the things myself. That is why I feel like I am very good at what I do because I know the things that drove me crazy and the things that I just wish somebody had helped me with. It was still okay. It wasn't as stressful as it could have been. I'm very organized, uh, obviously, but nonetheless, it would have been nice to have someone just do that for me. So, yeah,
Mm. Um,
interesting.
that's the only regret I have about when I went away to that island. The only
Yeah.
regret was not vetting out even though it was just two people getting married, still had a wedding planner there. They set up a little thing on the beach. It was very nice. The photographer, da 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 da. Well, I think I've shared before the photography. It was there were scratches on the negative, and this wasn't that far back. They were still using film. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of professional photographers do, but there were scratches on the negative, and some of the other things, it just should have planned that better. Um, it wasn't you. I'm gonna be honest. I wouldn't even have a worry. And along the way, the communication was a little wonky. It was okay, but it wasn't as best it could be. Now, I can't imagine if it was, 15 people there where there was more logistics to deal with. Oh, I don't know how that would have turned out.
It's funny because also there is a gecko on the outside the window.
Right now, you saying?
Yeah, right now. I was like, what's that thing? Oh, it's a gecko staring at me.
Cool.
We have a lot of geckos here. But anyway, that I digress. So people sometimes say, what's the big deal? I have guests. Like, how does that change anything? I'm like, the whole dynamics of everything changes when you have guests. And by the way, we welcome guests. We
Yeah.
do small weddings up to maximum like 30 people. But the more people you have, the more dynamics there are.
Mm,
It's it depends on the family. Sometimes it's like herding cats to get everybody to do, because again, you're standing on the beach. So that's different from when you have chairs and you're sitting down. So it's it's interesting. And I always feel glad I'm there because I think nothing would happen unless, like, I mean, it just can feel really, um, you just need someone to like rein everybody in, I guess is the point, because
yeah.
you need things to happen. And um, yeah, to your point, there's just a lot going on. So it's nice to have somebody who can help you pull it all together.
But
So
I just thought of another aspect of why having somebody that's got your back in this whole process is important with guests. You're the deflector. So let's say, everybody's saying, well, let's go have dinner here or whatever. And you and your husband, wife, partner, whatever it is, we really don't want to. And, Becky says it's not really the best place to go to if that's the case, whatever it is.
yeah.
It's you have somebody there in case you need, to run defense because sometimes it can get a little dicey in terms of family personalities, right?
Yeah, and in fact, if you're planning, like when you're coming here, sometimes couples tell me they want a small wedding, but people keep inviting themselves and they don't know how to say no and they don't want to offend
Mm,
anybody. And I say, well, the limit, if you want to get married on a beach, the limit on a public beach is like 30 people. And so you need to limit that includes you two. So you need to limit it. And then they feel relieved because then they can say, oh, I'm so sorry. And sometimes we have people that people will come and they say, well, you can come to the reception afterwards, but you can't come to the ceremony because we're limited on the beach. Um,
mm,
or they just use that as an excuse and say, and then they just limit to like immediate family or something like that. I've also had couples that only have their closest friends. They have no family, just their closest friends. Um,
mhm.
so it's an interesting thing, but that's one of the things I always talk to my couples about because they share with me these kinds of dynamics and the questions about, and then I always say, like, hey, you can always have a reception at home afterwards. And there's a couple of couples that hopefully I'll be having as guests who did that, that they had a great reception back. I think it was like one of them was like a week and a half after they got back from Hawaii. They had this huge reception, and they kept telling me throughout the process, like, I wish you were planning our other one too. It made it so easy. But yeah, anyway, so
Well,
it's
look at the
it's good.
creativity that in your situation you created three, and Who is going to think of putting three invitations in one envelope to three different aspects of all around the world, essentially, for
Yeah.
that. And back to the limits on the beach. Yeah, that could also be spun too, where, yeah, there's a limit on the beach of only 10 people. So I'm really sorry. Well, who put that
Yeah.
limit? Who put that limit there? We did.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah, that's
saying?
the other thing I say. You can always say, like, there's the real limit, and then there's the actual limit. And you can just tell them what you need to do, or what is. And there is one beach that has a limit of 20. It's a
Mm,
very strict limit. So I was noticing yesterday. I was talking to a couple that I just booked, and their wedding is coming up actually just in a few weeks. It was a kind of last minute elopement, but I was what they really valued, and I would say that they're middle-aged couple, and I get a lot of middle-aged couples. Um, they really valued the touch point. So there's a lot of places here where you can just book everything online and you don't really talk to the person. Maybe you talk to them once. And what I feel like the the difference, or I should say what I offer anyway, is the fact that I'm here to talk to you. And I get the couples they just want someone to talk to and talk it through with. And this is couples of all ages. It just depends on your personality, right? So some people, it just makes them feel better to have someone that they can email, have a Zoom call with, send a text to just get things answered. Because especially even if you don't have guests, there's a lot of questions that come up, and it's
oh my
so much
gosh.
harder to find the information, especially here. I feel like things are not well represented online, so it can be really hard to get the info. So, um,
Well,
yeah,
perception is reality, Becky. And we've talked about this before, where here it is 2025. My perception is that, yeah, you guys got a lot of stores now, to build up. You need something, you should be able to get it reasonably, maybe not as fast, here in this, the continental United States
yeah,
with Amazon by 3P today. Um, Not the case. Can take a week or more to get what you need.
yeah.
And even having questions answered. I don't know why anybody would hire somebody to facilitate their wedding without having direct communication with that person. Why? Why? Why?
I don't know. I think, sometimes I think people, it's weird when they are thinking about eloping. I think that a lot of times people think, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it happens. We just want to get married. It doesn't matter. Um, I don't tend to get those people. Sometimes I will talk to those people and they'll say, you're so much more than we expected. Like,
Hmm.
this is amazing, but um, like,
We don't think we need you.
we don't think we need you, which is totally okay because it is not, some people really don't care, and that's okay. But if you do care, um, that's sort of what I like. I want people who care about their wedding because I care about their wedding. Like, I want to
Right.
make it amazing. And even no matter how simple or um, complicated it is, my goal is to make it feel simple, right? So, and to be fun and to have you, because I could never get anyone to call me back when I was having my wedding. I was trying to call and get a hold of people. No one would ever call me back. It would take them forever.
Oh,
It made me so anxious. I just wanted to know that it was really happening. And yeah, so I try to get back in a very mindful way to my couples, usually very fast. And they know that they can reach out if they need me. It doesn't mean I'll be able to answer like right that moment, but nonetheless, I'm a good communicator and I want them to feel like, hey, it's good. I got you. I can reassure them of all sorts of things too.
and also, why
So,
would you want to have those memories of your wedding where, oh God, what's the stress that we went into? Like, I'm sure there's
yeah.
lots of stories that many have planning a wedding in a different location, one that's far off. Um, so engagement tips. What else can you share?
I would say, like, okay, so once you decide, kind of, by the way, what you also first decide may not be where you end up. That's the other thing. So you might say, hey, let's get married at a local winery or at the barn down the road or at grandma's backyard or whatever. And you start going along that path. Remember that it's okay if things change because sometimes when you start researching, it's not what you thought it was.
Mm,
Um, and that's okay. Like, give yourself permission to make adjustments along the way. because, it's all right. It's okay. Like we did. We started planning, we started looking, we had this plan about what we were going to do. And then I'm like, I just don't feel good about this. Every time I'm doing this, it feels stressful. It doesn't feel right. And then, of course, then we sat down and had a discussion about what was really important. And then everything felt easier. And then it was very easy in my mind to plan things, even though I had some frustrations along the way. It was very easy to think about it because we were going to Hawaii, our favorite place. And a lot of people choose destination weddings, A, because they can maybe keep the numbers a little smaller, and B, because you get your honeymoon kind of built in, can be a
Mm-hmm.
really fun experience.
Sure.
And the other thing is, I was helping a friend of mine a few years ago plan her wedding here. I mean, she was doing most of it, but I was planning with her, and she worried. She's like, "Oh, do you think I could charge everybody for dinner?" And I was like, "No, no, you can't. If people are flying to Hawaii to come to your wedding, you need to treat them. And if you can't afford the place, then you should look for a different place. Like people are coming for,
Mm,
if for a destination wedding, they are coming for an experience and you are treating them. And so you have to think about what's in your budget, what's not in your budget. Is someone helping you pay for it? Are you paying for it yourself? There's a lot of logistical things to consider. But I feel like most of the time, I mean, not all situations are like this, but most of the time, if it's really important to you, you will probably find the stretch in your budget. You'll find a way to make it happen because it's important to you. Um, but
mm.
yeah,
I,
so
I'm inside, and I maybe visibly chuckled a little bit. I'm not judging anybody, but I wouldn't have the etiquette answer to that. It's out of my wheelhouse. I'd be thinking about it like, I don't know how that goes. And you emphatically said, no. Bad
I,
idea. Bad idea.
Yeah. I just felt like it would be received very poorly, especially if you're asking people because they weren't asking for gifts. They were just saying, come to our wedding." But your job, if you invite someone to a destination wedding, it's your job. By the way, you do not, however, some of my couples say, "Well, I have to pay for everyone's lodging and I have to pay for their plane." No, you don't. You really do not. Getting there is their responsibility. I mean, unless you have lots of money, in which case, great. Please do that for everybody. That's a beautiful gift. But if you are stressed, like your budget's tight, it is not your job to pay for everyone's plane flights and everyone's hotel rooms. Maybe a few select family members, depending on the situation. Um, but otherwise, that's their responsibility. But your
Hmm.
responsibility is the wedding, taking care of the thing. Because a lot of times people say, "Well, gosh, I can't, I only have like $1,000 left for my wedding because I'm paying for everyone's plane flights and their hotel." And I'm like, "Well, that's not enough," you know, and that's not going to cut it. I don't know, there should not be this feeling that you have to pay for everyone to get there. And if no one in your life can afford to come, maybe rethink the location or elope,
Or yeah,
because
go solo or whatever it might be.
yeah,
But interesting. This is the kind of stuff that you can Google it and some will say this, some will say that, but this is what you do and have done it hundreds of times.
yeah.
Um, I would have
It's
wondered,
almost 800, Steve. It's pretty cool. So yeah, anyway.
whoa, can't imagine. But yeah, paying for people, I would be sitting with that myself right now. So I'm glad we're talking about it. Um, whether, all right, you guys pay the airfare, we'll take care of the accommodations. But either way, unless you have that in your budget, talking big dollars here, times
Yeah,
10 people, 15 people, 20, whatever it might be, big,
yeah,
big numbers, and if you planned on getting married, um, in Hawaii because you weren't going to do a big wedding, in the continental US and, you're going to nail down your honeymoon at the same time. Okay. But there's big numbers there. So,
yeah. And I
interesting.
mean, There's always other places to consider. Like, I mean, you can get really good deals in Mexico, and you can ride horses on the beach in Mexico. So, like, there are things you can do in Mexico because it's Mexico that that you cannot do in Hawaii. We have a lot more rules, and there's a lot of environmental and considerations here that are very crucial. And our beaches are not really long enough to ride horses along the beach, honestly. But
Is that what it is? Like what's the reason for that? Just kind of curious.
I am not 100% sure, but it is illegal to ride horses on the beach here.
Oh,
Um, and part of that is I don't know whether it's beach erosion. I don't know whether it's the horse, you don't want any horse droppings on the beach. I don't know if but obviously also people in Florida are like, wait, you can't drive on the beach there? No, you cannot drive on the beach. First of all, again, they're not big enough most of the time. A and B, there's erosion issues and that kind of thing. There are a few beaches you have to drive. You either hike or you drive in a really tall 4x4 down to the beach, and then you can have your car. But you're not allowed to like drive up and down the beach. It's just not allowed.
wow.
So, and
That being said,
I
while we're
think
at
that's a lot of it.
that juncture, uh, what are because the weddings take place on the beach, what are some
Yeah.
things that we should be mindful of that maybe we might not know or have a different view of? Just,
Ah,
beach
okay.
etiquette
Yes.
rules.
Yeah. So, like we've talked about many times before, on a public beach, you may not have chairs. You can't have an arch. Sometimes you can fudge a freestanding arch, maybe. It depends on the beach, but most of the time, those are not permitted. Um, you can have chairs, though, for elderly or disabled people, or if someone like broke their leg or something. So you can have chairs for those people. You can, by the way, if you want all of those things, get a private venue. Then you can have all of those things, but it won't be right on the beach because that's not permitted on the public shoreline. But it will be beautiful and you'll be right near the water if that's something that's important to you. Um, you can't like have a bonfire on the beach. Um, and all of our beaches close 30 minutes after sunset. So you can't like arrange a dinner right on the beach, right after your wedding. Um, Unless you're at a hotel and then they have a private dining option that they can set up on the beach, then you can. But if you're on a public beach, you cannot
Wow.
sit up and create you can't like do a private dinner, uh, like just set up on the beach and do that. You can do picnics earlier in the day, but again, we have very strict 30 minutes after sunset, the beach is closed kind of thing. So, yeah,
I think that would surprise a lot of people, the fact that 30 minutes after sunset, the beach closes. You
we don't
know,
have a twilight here. Like that twilight is like 30 minutes and then it's dark most of the time.
all right.
So,
Hmm.
and that the other reason I think it mainly started in Honolulu. The idea was, sorry, can you hear that? There's a giant tractor outside.
No, don't hear
Good. So glad you can. It's going away now.
it.
I live again in the middle of these coffee farms now, and man, that guy's loud. So anyway, I think it started because they're trying to deter, especially again in Honolulu, the homeless population for sleeping on the beach. So there's no
Okay.
camping. And we have permitted camping sites. So if you do want to camp on the beach, there are places to do that. But I think it's really a deterrent so that people just don't sleep on the beach. Um, yeah,
Other guidelines for the beach, because this is where it all happens. Anything else that we should know?
yeah,
It doesn't even have to be a law or regulation, but maybe just things to be mindful of.
yeah. Um, we can't reserve spots. It's a public beach. So I always when I have flowers set up, if I don't have flowers set up, I don't always meet somebody ahead of time. But um, if we have a flower set up, like I have to set up the flowers ahead of time, then we we will meet on the beach and I will show you, we'll pick like three favorite spots. Usually we can get the first spot. Almost like I would say 95% of the time we get the number one spot that someone chooses.
Hmm.
But I have a couple backup spots always because, say there's a group of 90-year-olds like camped out in your spot, and even if they would move, it would take them too long. Or, someone has a hammock set up or whatever it is. So we have some backup locations. And then I always say, and I might choose X Factor spot. And the rare occasion that there is a huge windstorm and we just need to be in this like the best place out of the wind. Again, that is very rare. We don't tend to have, at least not on the beaches I use, we don't tend to have like huge windstorms. I can probably 5 times out of the last nearly 800 weddings has that ever happened. So it's like not a huge consideration, but people understand it's outside. Um, and the other thing, by the way, little side fashion side note, you're on the beach. A lot of times women want to wear their hair down and flowy. Not always a great thing. There is always an ocean breeze here. You want to think about whether your hair is going to get in your face and like across your eyes as you're trying to talk. A half updo or an updo is always best on the beach. So that's something
Mm.
to think about. Yeah.
Has there been
And also
times,
like any,
Becky, like
huh?
you've rolled up, ready for a wedding, and somebody's on the beach, whether it's another ceremony or like, what if I came there with a bunch of my friends and yeah, we're going swimming, we're going snorkeling, we're on the beach, we're right there, we put down our towels, whatever it might be, um, and then do you have all your guests and a client? Has that ever happened?
Not really, because the beaches I use are they're very specific beaches that work really well for weddings. And they're not like, I have favorite beaches I swim on, but I don't like to do weddings on them for that kind of reason, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be a big gathering of people or something, but that's pretty rare. These beaches that I use are not particularly crowded most of the time. Occasionally, there might be another wedding on one of the beaches I use, but there's a lot of places to be private, and we all kind of know each other. We know how to work around each other. And I usually, because I'm there ahead of time setting up, I usually text my couple and I say, hey, we're at spot number 2, or we're at spot number 1, or whatever it is. And occasionally, I mean, I ask people if it's just like a family or something, and it's usually getting towards sunset, and they might be thinking about leaving. I'll say, "Hey, is there any way you might be able or willing to move? Because we've got a wedding here, and this was their favorite spot."
Mm.
And I would say 99 times out of 100, people say, no problem. We can totally move. And I'll say, no, we still have time, but if you would be willing. And most people are very accommodating. I think only once I had a couple say no. They were like having a fight. This couple was having a fight and they were pretty mad and they did not want to move. And later they apologized and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like the spot?" And I said, "No, that's okay. We're all set up over here. It's all good." Um, but I always tell people like you never know, who you might get, and you just have to roll with it.
Mm.
Um, and I have had couples tell me like I think it would be hilarious. Like if there's someone here and they won't move, let's set up next to them anyway. And just like if this person's like sunbathing next to my wedding, I think that would be so funny. That's never actually had to happen,
Mm.
but yeah, kind of like, fine, then we'll do it anyway, and you can just be in our pictures, and that's on you to feel awkward and weird. But I don't particularly recommend that. Uh, so anyway,
So
yeah,
question. Let's say I want to get married in Hawaii
yeah.
and I don't want to do a venue. I'm not feeling a beach, but I definitely want the Hawaiian vibe, the culture, that kind of feel to it. Where would I go?
So like a lot of times, if you're renting a private house, so sometimes it depends on the home. So a lot of private homes will allow, especially a smaller wedding, like if it's just everyone staying there, no problem. The main thing with events is if you're bringing in a caterer and you're bringing in lots of trucks to like bring stuff in, but most of the time it's a very small gathering, that's fine. And there's some rental houses that are perfect for weddings and
Sure.
events. And they
But what
can be
if
a little more,
I don't want to rent a place, but I'm just not into the beachy vibe. Are
um,
there parks, things like that?
no,
Really? Okay. Yeah, now
not
we
not
know.
here, not on this side of the island. Um, there might be on the Hilo side, but even so, it's difficult for public land. Um, Public property is along the shoreline. So all shoreline is public access in the state of Hawaii. Not so with all the rest of it.
Ah, okay.
It's private land or state-owned land. And so as a result, um, you have to rent a venue. There
Mission
are venues,
mission
but
accomplished. Now I get it because now I'm seeing like, all right, yeah, let's go to this nice little area. There's a waterfall there. It's inland, blah blah blah. well, it may not be public land, and maybe there aren't parks that are picturesque that would translate well to a wedding scene.
Yeah, and you need to, there's a lot of places where it seems like a great idea, but there are still restrictions or permits needed if there are special places like you could um yeah, like to my knowledge, you can't like the waterfall areas, which are almost all over in Hilo, which is the rainy side of the island, thus waterfalls, right? Um, that stuff may be state land. It's not just land where you can just show up. I mean, honestly, you might be able to get away with it, but not if you have any guests. And I wouldn't do that.
Why would you take
Not
a
if
chance, just showing
I
up?
don't feel like it's worth the risk, not on your wedding day.
And
So,
there's
yeah.
Johnny Conservation Officer standing by. But we're just going to be 20 minutes with the
Yeah.
wedding. Well, no, you're not. Now what? Now what do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
never know. And also, if you show up and you're on someone's private land, that is not going to go well,
Of course.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
See, these are the things that one would assume. And I honestly, that one, I really assumed that you were going to say, okay, got this spot here, maybe two, in case you don't want to go to the beach. Is a little more shade there. Think you might like this picturesque scenery. I would just assume there is, and then but you know what? We'll figure this out when we get to Hawaii. We don't need to hire a Becky or anything like that. No, there's one of the other reasons why. Hmm.
Yeah, and also, one of the beaches that I love to use that has that exclusive permit where they only allow 20 people, that does have grass right by the water, and there's shade on that beach, which is one of the huge draws of that location. There's sand, there's palm trees, there's lava, there's a grassy patch, and there is shade if you want shade. So it's a really cool, like, and it's quintessential Big Island. You can see Maui, you can see Mauna Kea, you can see Hualalai. And it's a really cool location. That's one of my favorite beaches, and the one next to it is my other favorite beach, which doesn't have as many restrictions. There isn't as much shade on the other beach, but nonetheless, it's gorgeous. So,
Hmm.
and other locations, but those are the best ones because they offer such a variety for photos also. So, yeah.
So what else? Anything else that we're maybe not hitting for somebody getting
Uh,
engaged or planning?
Yeah, I would say the other thing is, when you do plan, you don't need, for instance, when you're doing a destination wedding, you may or may not want a wedding party. You don't have to have a wedding party. Um, Especially if you have 10 people there, then everybody might kind of be the wedding party. And so it's actually
Hmm.
nicer to have, you can assign them roles to do things to help you, but in terms of standing up with you, it's actually really nice for everyone to be able to watch you. Because if they're standing beside you, as if you've ever been in a wedding, you can't see the people very well most of the time, right? You're standing next to them, but you kind of miss it. Everybody else gets to see it. So
Hmm.
oftentimes, if every like and I have had people where they just have everyone stand up beside them and that is their whole thing. And you can do that if you want to do that, if that's your thing, absolutely. Or you can have everyone's in your wedding party, but then they're standing watching you instead. So it's up to you. I'll talk to you about what you want to do. Um, Also, like sometimes, especially if you're eloping, you don't need a bouquet if you don't want to. This is what you can't, it's hard to take the bouquet home a lot of times. So you have to decide. I always say, are flowers important to you? If they are, totally get one. If they're not, and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, it's not like a requirement to have a bouquet. Um, you'll be holding hands a lot during the ceremony. Like think about, I guess the point is, most importantly, think about the kind of experience you want. Think about how you want to feel the day of your wedding and think about if you imagine your ideal day, who's around you. And if you really start from that place, it'll make it easier for the other logistics. Obviously, I do not do the 300-person giant weddings, but I have friends that are planners on the mainland who do amazing jobs with these gorgeous giant weddings, and they will help you with every step too. So, I mean, it just depends on the type of wedding, but I think it's always important to sit with your future spouse. And I really think that your spouse, especially like a lot of times men are like, whatever you want. But it really does. I talk with couples who I ask them what's most important to them. And sometimes the spouse will say, oh, they don't care, whatever. And then they'll surprise them during our phone call, during our Zoom, and they'll be like, I didn't know you wanted that, or I didn't know that was important to you. It's really important to have that conversation and say, what do you imagine? What's most important? Because even though they say, oh, they'll let me do anything, it doesn't matter, there are certain things that will matter. And I think that you don't have to burden them with all the details. Maybe they don't care about flowers and you take care of the flowers. But in terms of the base important things, try to get on the same page because then it'll make it
Mm.
much more fun.
So I'm going to challenge your creativity for just a sec.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody is listening and watching, and maybe they've talked with their partner about one day, we get married in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and they want to propose, but they want to do it in a creative way that will include the Hawaii aspect. Any
Yeah.
ideas on what they can do or how they can propose as kind of the setup to the Hawaiian wedding?
Yes, I have a lot of ideas actually about this. So
Hmm.
first of all, the best thing you can do is take them on a trip to Hawaii and then propose to them. And there are photographers I know who will do like a surprise proposal
You know
set.
what? Can I share with you? Bring back memories in another life. I did
Yeah.
that. Was in Hawaii. It was in a Caribbean island. I just totally forgot about this. I forgot that that's where it was. And what I did was, you can get a romance novel published, and include information, your favorite perfume, cologne, your names, and the stories about you, and all it is, they just insert your names. But what I had done was I inserted a dummy page where the story was what was going on at the moment. We're at the restaurant called the Cliff, and this is us here. And then he gets down on a knee, and then he proposes. And I said, "You got to read page 73. It's really steamy. It was a book so you could read on the beach, whatever." And it was in real time. But I went back there and got married in the same spot. I totally forgot about that until you just said it. So yeah, okay, there you go.
So that is a thing you can do. The other thing you can do is if you can't get to Hawaii, like maybe, I have a lot of couples for whom Hawaii is like a one-time bucket list item, like they're going
Sure.
to do it for their wedding, but that may be the only time they get there. So you can order flowers from Hawaii. You can order like leis, so beautiful flower leis. You can also order like Sonia orchids, which are like the purple orchids with the white in the middle, like the quintessential
Totally got it.
Hawaiian. And you can order those even on Amazon. They'll sell loose flowers on Amazon. You could order a bunch of those and then like set up a flower heart or like a petal path with a full orchids, not the petals, but like the full orchids on the ground. And then maybe have some candles, maybe have like, if you don't have palm trees where you live, but kind of set up like this tropical feeling, and maybe some Hawaiian music or something. You guide them into a place or whatever it might be. Um,
Hmm.
I would say just kind of create the mood, but I would say that bring in elements of Hawaii, which would be leis or those flowers, or maybe hire a ukulele player or something. There's lots of little things that you could do. Um, And it's hard to answer that question because it depends on where the person lives and like what their thing is. But I have lots of ideas. I'm good at that. If
Hmm.
people are like, what do you think I should do? I'm like, okay, tell me this, tell me that. Okay, what about this? What about that? And then I get a feeling of what they might
Well,
need.
there's another reason why somebody can reach out to you, maybe pick your brain for a couple of minutes on a consultation phone call, because on the back end, they'll be calling you again as
Yeah,
they try to plan, the ceremony itself.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And it can be really fun, but I feel like yeah, there's so many fun ways to do it. And I feel like um there's something so special about getting, by the way, I would say for people thinking about getting married, and maybe it's your first time, I will tell you that I get a lot of people who are getting married the second time who say, I really just wanted to get married in Hawaii the first time and I wasn't allowed to. And so I get a lot of second and third marriages where this is what they wanted. They wanted to feel relaxed. They want it just beautiful. They just want to have a great time. And I do have some first-time couples that are younger who say, I'm doing it anyway. And a lot of times, I speak with their parents and who are lovely. So especially if they're in their early 20s, I will definitely, like nearly 100% of the time, I will speak with parents as well, and help them arrange. But I think it's really cool if that's your dream and you're supported in it the first time and not forced to do like something, maybe that's not you. And hopefully you don't have to have a second marriage, but you can do a vow renewal. So I
Mm,
also have couples that get married in the traditional way, and sometimes on their honeymoon, they do a vow renewal with me because that's the wedding they really wanted. So they're already married. And then they come and they're like, this is the wedding. We get to do our wedding the way we wanted it. And they do it right afterwards, or 10, 20 years later, or anytime you're coming to Hawaii. So remember, a vow renewal is always on the table. If, say, the real wedding has to be a certain way due to family expectations, whatnot, remember that there are vow renewals, and you can set it up later anytime you want to too. So
mm. What if somebody's looking for something Hawaiian themed and or connected to put the ring in to give to the other person? Wow. Coconut
oh,
shell, not that, but maybe that. I don't know. But is there anything that's, more authentic that something like that, be a little, little creative?
yeah, like, I mean, obviously you can get it's funny, our shells here are little, the shells here are, I don't feel like this is, I mean, I collect a ton of shells. We have a lot more coral, and you could get a little piece of coral and put it on a little piece of coral to present to them. Koa
Okay.
wood, Koa wood is a sacred wood here. So if you can get a Koa wood box, that's really special. Those
Mm,
are very fine. It's a rare piece of wood. And those are, it's gorgeous. Curly Koa especially has this beautiful pattern, and it's almost like shiny and beautiful. So you could put it in a Koa wood box, which would be really special, and very Hawaii. And trying to think of like the best kind of shells. Sunrise shells are a really special thing here too. Usually that's just a one-sided, here I am, a one-sided shell, see?
that was almost like a subliminal ad for a ring. Yeah, one side shell right over here.
But it's like a kind of like a little fan shell,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And
I gotcha.
yeah, and it's in a, so if you have a sunrise shell, those are usually pretty tiny. But they're rare and you can find them. I found one, or my husband found one on the beach in Kauai, but those are special shells that you can find here in Hawaii. So if you can find a good sunrise shell to put it in, I don't think you could find the whole thing, but you could at least place it in one, then they'd have
Hmm.
that.
I
So
love that whatever that wood box is, because you could present the ring in that,
yeah.
and the other person might not even, it won't be on their radar at that moment, and you can say, you know what that is, and that's it. What is that called again? That wood? What's it called?
Koa, Koa, Koa wood. Yeah.
Hollywood. Really? Okay, yeah. You know why that's special? Why? It's from Hawaii, and that's where we're gonna go, and
Yeah.
that's where we're getting married.
Yeah.
And it's inside there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and by the way, I have had, just real quick, I did have this couple from Germany once where the guy told me that it was a surprise wedding. They had been together a long time. She had said yes, they were engaged, but she didn't know they were going to get married on this trip in Hawaii. And I said, well, the only thing about that, you can do a surprise vow renewal, but for a wedding, you need the marriage license. So you do need to tell her before the actual day. So
Ooh.
then I helped them plan how to surprise her here in Hawaii, so that they could uh, and then I met with the two of them because I wanted to make sure that she had had a chance to get to know me before the wedding. But it was fun to help him plan that surprise, and then to organize I got the marriage license appointment set up for them so that they could then, it would be easy. But
Wow.
it's fun planning surprises.
It this is what it's all about. 800 weddings, the,
Almost like,
almost
yep, yeah.
800. The creativity it's almost endless what you can do to and tailor it to somebody. What's the best start for somebody? They reach out to you, start a conversation, and it's a relationship.
Yeah.
Big moment. See if it's a right fit. What's the best way to find you?
So the best thing is to go to my website, which is Simple Kona Beach Weddings with an S.com. Fill out the contact form. And then I will email you. You'll get like an automatic email back, but then I will personally email you back within 24 to 72 hours, and usually within 24 hours. And we'll set up a Zoom call. And then I'm going to have you fill out a questionnaire. Unless it's like a very like last minute wedding, I might not have you fill out the questionnaire, but otherwise I'll have you fill out a questionnaire. And assuming all of that looks good too, we'll have the Zoom call, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Because we want to make sure we've got a good fit, make sure everything feels happy together. And yeah, I mean, I'm always lucky. I get like the nicest people. I feel like the nicest couples ever. So we always have a great time together. So it's always fun.
It's called energy, Becky, and you attract it. I'm
Thank you.
convinced
I like to-
they flock to you because they feel the vibe, and not to go woo here, but I'm convinced that even energetically, somebody searching online, they're probably feeling something. And of course, you want to do your due diligence and you try this one and that one. But as I've heard from people that you've worked with, many times those others don't call them back, or it's weeks later, or the communication is poor. Not the situation with you. Tons of 5-star reviews. SimpleKonaBeachWeddings.com. Thank you for being here today. Anybody thinking of popping the question and getting married in Hawaii, they should go to right over there for ideas. And thanks for all the insights. It's always fun talking with you. It's just it's a happy time and exciting for everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. It was really fun today to talk about this too. So I'm glad we had a chance to chat about all this stuff. So really fun. Thank
Absolutely. All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving. We'll catch up soon.
you. You too. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.